All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Leo, and we are working on a new interview tonight. It's been a little while since we've had an interview, and I'm with Michelle Kitchen. She has been a member of Uplift for quite a while, and excited to be with her. She and I have been talking to prepare for this interview, and I just asked her where she's from, and she said she's from everywhere because of her military background. But she's currently in Utah, living in Eagle Mountain. And Michelle has a great story. She's kind of like me in a lot of ways, I think, with struggling with certain aspects of faith and specifically the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it's great to be with you, Michelle. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
We'll start off by letting you just kind of tell us about you, anything you want to share, background, being raised in the church, and anything related to your faith journey that you'd like to share, or about your family, or about you and things that you care about. Anything you want to share?
Okay. I'll just kind of introduce myself first. Obviously my name is Michelle, and I'm married. I have 3 kids, and I work as a preschool teacher, and my husband is a plant repair, and we're both LDS, and we've both been LDS our whole lives. Um, and I grew up in a very devout family who so we just, let's see, how do I even describe it? The church was just everything. It was absolutely everything to us. So my dad was actually a chaplain in the army for the church. And so everything he did was for the church. So it was something that was a huge part of our lives and my growing up and my identity. And his background is that his family goes back in the church for like generations. Like they were pioneers crossing from Nauvoo to Utah. So it's very much a huge part of not only like what we believe, but our family culture. And yeah, it's just a big part of who we are. And let's see, what else? We were really orthodox and really, I like to use the word, like my parents' goal was like to be valiant. And so everything that came out, like every new rule, or like we were the type of people who we didn't play with face cards, or we didn't drink caffeine. Kind of like if the church would say like don't watch R-rated movies, we wouldn't watch PG-13 movies. So we were just my family was just very, very dedicated and wanting to do the absolute best at being the best members they could possibly be. So that's my background a little bit, my family background. And then growing up in the church outside of Utah also, I think, solidified the church being part of my identity, because that's how I was known. I was known as the Mormon girl. And people would always ask me questions, and they would ask about the church, and they would ask, and they kind of just knew like who I was and what I believed in. And so I did the regular member of the church things. I went to 4 years of early morning seminary where we would where we'd study the scriptures every morning. And then I came out here to Utah to go to BYU, met my husband. Oh, just kidding, I didn't meet him yet. Came out to BYU, and then I ended up serving a mission in Fiji. And then after that, I came back to Utah, finished up my school while I was teaching in the Missionary Training Center. And then that's where I met my husband, at the Missionary Training Center while I was teaching. And then we got married. We got married in the Provo Temple right across the street from the MTC, and started our family. So that's basically my history in a nutshell of just general history.
That's cool. That word valiant, it's a good way to describe, I think, a lot of us growing up in the church. Yeah. Very, very good. And then, and So as far as like your faith growing up, it was, would you say, a pretty simple faith before things got complex?
To be honest, I've always been a questioner.
Okay.
Like I always had questions, which actually led to like some really good experiences. Like I remember when I was in high school, I had lots of friends that went to lots of different churches, and I loved going to services with them. And I remember feeling what I thought was the spirit in all of these places. And I remember asking my dad, like, why do I feel the spirit here? And, he helped me learn that like the spirit can be everywhere. And, but then it made me question, like, okay, but yeah, what is the difference? Do I like, is the Book of Mormon true? And then that's probably when I first started questioning, like, is the Book of Mormon true? Is Joseph Smith a prophet? And I've had an experience in high school where I felt like I did pray about it, and I did feel like I received confirmation. And yeah, so that was kind of the start of like my questioning. But I felt like even in those times, I would always get answers. And I think it got complicated when I stopped feeling like I was getting answers. That got tricky. But throughout my life, it felt simple in a way, because every time I had questions, I would be able to find answers. And even one of my friends who wasn't a member was talking to me once, and she was like, "Your church has all the answers," and I was like, "I know, right? Like that's why it's true." And so then, as I grew older and started having some of my own questions and hearing other friends' questions and trying to find answers for them, and realizing that it started to get a little more complicated for me. So yeah.
So it's kind of skeptical growing up, even though everyone was pretty straightforward, pretty traditional in their beliefs. Um, did you have a lot of opportunities to study like church history or some of the difficult topics as you were growing up, or is it kind of, what kind of questions did you have or whatever?
So as I was growing up, well, so I did hear things, right? Because like I grew up outside of Utah, where people would come to me and be like, "How many moms do you have?" And I'd be like, why are they saying that?" And so
Uh,
I was aware of like certain things like polygamy and some aspects of our church history. So I was definitely aware of some things. But once again, I felt like my parents were good. My dad is really good at like, he's good at coming up with answers. And he always had such a good answer for like everything. And I actually like, I really love to like, this was bad, but I love to like Bible bash with my friends, and he would like prepare me with like all these scriptures. And so we would go back and forth debating. But like, once again, it kind of confirmed to me, like that was kind of what a lot of my testimony I think was writing on, was that like I always have answers. Like there's always answers in this gospel. Um so so yeah, that was kind of how things were for me. So it's like it wasn't necessarily that I was like totally skeptical, but I would have like little elements of skepticism come up when I would hear these things from other people, and then we'd talk it out, and then I would felt like I would have answers. So it still was kind of like a simple faith in a way, but I definitely was aware of a lot of this, a lot of these things. And then I also spent one semester of my college education in Nauvoo studying church history for 4 or 5 months, just solely church history, pretty much is all we did. And I think that's probably where I started to learn some more things that I hadn't really heard before.
okay, in college, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So, so now tell us about your mission. Was it a pretty standard mission, like just uh, nothing too crazy there? Did everything go okay and return back okay?
Yeah. My mission, I felt like I loved it. It was really difficult. I think it was on my mission. I didn't know at the time, but on my mission, a lot of the mental health issues that I have struggled with started popping up
Mm,
everywhere, because it is a very strenuous thing. And so I did deal with that a lot, but like faith wise, I was fine. I feel like I was rock solid during my mission, before my mission. So I went and studied I studied in Nauvoo for a semester, and then I had this break in between, and then I went on my mission. And so in between there, I did go to the temple for the first time, and that was probably where like the very first crack came because I don't know why. Like I had always been like okay with everything, but when I went through the temple, I just remember like crying and being like, I think I'm in a cult. And I had never had these thoughts ever in my life. It was just such like an overwhelming and like shocking experience for me. But
Mhm.
I was able to get through it because I looked at the symbols of Christ and I love Jesus. And I was like, there's Christ everywhere in the temple. I'm going to focus on that. And then it was my mission actually that helped me like feel more solid about the temple because I served in Fiji where there's lots of Hindus and lots of Muslims, and they all have like very they're very ritualistic in the way they worship, and they have lots of symbolism and everything that they do. And I would have members who converted from Hinduism or other religions talk to me about the symbolisms that they felt like they saw of Christ now that they were Christian in their religions, and that was like interesting. But it just overall it just made me like realize like, oh, ritual and symbolism is everywhere. I don't need to be like overwhelmed by this or feel like this is something scary or out of the ordinary. So my mission, I felt like, actually helped me like feel more rock solid again in the gospel for a little bit.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. That's really good. I think a lot of people will resonate with that is the so no temple prep really? Did you kind of have a little bit of that, or was it just go and try it?
It there was a little. It's not like it is now. Like I think
Yeah.
I would have really appreciated how open it was. I think part of it was like, once again, I didn't know at the time like I had an anxiety disorder. And so part of it was me like, and I went through in a different language. My family was living in Germany. It was everything was in German, and like I had a headset, but it was still just like, ah. So I think what I was really feeling was like this overwhelming anxiety and mixed in with a new experience. And so it just like was totally overwhelming. So
So so Munich temple, or where did you go?
it was actually Freiburg. Yeah, which was
Freiburg
kind of
temple.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, which is kind
Wow.
of cool. I love East Germany, and remember even as young as like second grade, like loving learning about like the Berlin Wall and everything. So like it was really exciting to go to a temple in East Germany. So
That's cool. Well, yeah, I can imagine, being in a foreign country and then it's all foreign as it is, it's like double, like an extra layer of foreign
exactly.
on that temple experience being in a
All these
different
new
country.
things and like different
Wow.
language, and I'm like, am I gonna have to like know German for a minute? Like, what is going on? So
Yeah.
I think that definitely played into like how I felt after. It was just a lot of anxiety.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you've talked about mental health a little bit here. I think it'd be good just to share. You said some of the things that you've struggled with, like so many of us have struggled. And was it you said mostly anxiety that you struggled with
Yeah,
over the years? Yeah.
yeah. Anxiety, like generalized anxiety disorder, I think it's like my official diagnosis, but there's also other things going on as well. OCD runs in my family, and I don't feel like I don't think I would have OCD totally, but I can see how OCD tendencies pop up, and especially like when it comes to gospel things, because I feel like OCD likes to latch on to gospel things. So yeah, so those are kind of the main things that I've struggled with throughout my life, and some depression as well.
Yeah. And so scrupulosity is that
Mhm.
religious OCD, right? So
Oh yeah, definitely. That I
can
mean that was something I definitely did struggle with for probably since I was like 8 years old. I was writing in my journal, like trying to rate how righteous I was at like that young of an age, like so worried about it.
uh,
So
oh yeah. Wow, that's intense. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a cute thing and a good thing for kids to want to be good, but it can turn into more difficult for
mhm.
people as they
Kind
grow.
of an
grow older.
obsession. Yeah.
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 So so you so your a- anxiety that you've struggled with, seems like you're saying it kind of had a play like a some kind of influence on your spiritual journey, like impacted you and how you could feel the Holy Ghost maybe, or like be able to receive answers to prayers, or how did it actually impact you take us through some of the challenges with that.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a yeah. I feel like my spiritual journey and my mental health journey, they've totally intertwined like my whole life. I think a lot of times the way I interpreted the gospel and the way it was being taught to me, and um, I kind of interpreted things through an anxious OCD type lens, where things were a lot of times all or nothing, or just kind of very like either I'm a good person or I'm a bad person. That was a big one that I've struggled with my whole life. So like either I'm good or I'm bad, and then like my very immature black and white thinking brain is like, and I messed up here, so I must be a bad person, and so like kind of that perfectionism comes into play a lot, and scrupulosity, and like feeling like I need to perform things just right and I need to be just right, and kind of feeling like I um yeah, that like I'm just always kind of under the microscope, like feeling like I just need to be absolute best I can, and that I think came like from all the good teachings that are out there in the church, and came through a lens to me as like, I'm just filtering in like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. And I think it still happens, even like listening to conference can be hard, and like so many things come through these filters that kind of distort maybe like what the meaning is, or maybe those meanings would be great for someone without anxiety, but for someone who's already freaking out about everything that they're doing wrong, it wasn't helpful for me. And so I've had to learn, like, I am learning and still in the process of learning how to like separate out, like, okay, what's anxiety, what's true, and that's with everything in life, but in the gospel as well. Like, what is anxiety? What is obsession? What is paranoia? And what is actually true? So yeah.
Mm. And so with so have you managed all this kind of on your own, just researching things? Have you had some support from people or?
I've been in therapy on and off for a few years, and that's definitely helped. I do like to read a lot, so I've read a lot of books. And yeah, a lot of it is just me working through my own things and trying to find good therapists. And all of my therapists have been good for different reasons at different points in my journey. And
Mm,
most of them have been really supportive in helping me kind of learn to kind of like filter away all of, or just kind of to get down to like who I am, what do I value, what do I really believe, and then cling to those things, which help me move through the anxiety and the depression and the other things and the scrupulosity.
mm. Okay. Yeah. So a support group there. And then what about like family, your parents? Are they still around, still with you?
They are on a mission actually right now for the church
Oh,
in Korea. So,
oh,
and
cool.
they don't live near me, so I don't see them a ton. They live in Missouri, near far west. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So your support group, like other than your therapist, have you had some support from like your husband and like local members like in your ward or like
My
people?
husband has been really supportive. He understands, I don't know, he understands everything I'm going through, I feel like. Um and then I yeah, I don't know. I guess I tend to be kind of someone who's just like, this is my journey. I'm gonna figure it out by myself. And so
Oh,
I don't have like a ton of supports outside of like my husband and my therapist. But my bishop has been helpful here and there in my faith crisis. He's helped me kind of work through things there. And then faith crisis wise, I mean, I found uplift at a great moment too. So you all have been supportive to me too in those moments. But mental health wise, it's like my therapist and my husband, and that's about it.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge a lot of people face is not just kind of feeling lonely, like they're not really understood by everyone else tends to put on the best face, like everything else is good. And so it's sometimes we walk around like in the hallways of church even and we're like I'm the only one that's struggling here. Sometimes I feel like that myself, and I know other people
Mhm.
sometimes feel like that. And And I mean, just that's just the way humans are. I think we all kind of try to look good, but inside we're not always so good. So
Yeah. It's hard to be vulnerable like that. Like it takes some opening up. And I noticed that as I have tried to be more vulnerable, especially like in my ward, a lot of times I will have people reach out and be like, hey, I am struggling with this too. We should chat. I had someone actually just recently, like, I had no idea, like, you had faith struggles. Like, we should chat because I've been struggling too. So, but I know I get it. It's hard. It's hard to open up about these hard things.
so your faith crisis, you mentioned that is, would you say more intellectual, or is it kind of cultural, like a mixture of things? Like maybe talk us through some of the shelf breakers or whatever that you went through, this stuff that was too heavy, the burden was too heavy, and then just take us down into the dark night of the soul. Like what happened and how did it impact you and your family? Just anything you want to share would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, I kind of like lived my life as a member of the church, kind of checking off the boxes, doing all the things that I felt like I should. And I was even with the ups and downs in that, I still felt very, very committed to the church for a really long time. And then I think like the very first, besides the temple, like I got over that one, but then like the very first huge one that I really struggled to get over is polygamy, which is weird because like I knew about polygamy. Like I was such a nerd. I read all of the Work and the Glory like multiple times. Like I knew about this stuff, but like it wasn't until after I got married and then I sat down to watch Sister Wives and I was like, oh, and it was like it just hit me like, oh, wait. Oh, they had to like do this? Like I knew it, but like it had never clicked. And like that just like broke my heart. And like I was like, I can't imagine like living like that. And then that kind of like prompted me to start really digging in. Like, what was it like? Like what? And so I started reading, like I read DNC 132, like, oh my gosh, so many times. And I mean, I can see now how it also tied into like anxiety because like I would obsess over this. And so like I got
Yeah.
stuck obsessing over this for a long time and it was bringing me so much anxiety. And I remember for the first time in my life, like I'd never been angry at God, but for the first time in my life, I was livid at God. And I was like, how could you do this to your daughters? Like, you're mean. That's what I felt like. And and I don't know, I obsessed over that for a good while at the beginning of our marriage. And then after talking to my dad, like I said, he's got lots of good answers and knowledge and the scriptures and stuff. And he was kind of able to help me like kind of get over it for a minute and feel like some peace about it so I could continue just living life because I was getting like really hyper focused and obsessed over it. Um, so I got over that hump. I kind of put that on the shelf for a little bit and then I kept moving through. And then I think it came back off the shelf when a, like a few years later, the polygamy essays came out about Joseph Smith's polygamy. And those hit me really hard because on my mission, I had defended the prophet against a lot of those things that were coming out in the essays. And then I'm like, oh, wait, these are actually true. And so that felt like really confusing and like, I don't know, that was really hard. So then it brought all that off the shelf again. And then at that point is when I started like diving into all sorts of church history and like current issues and past issues. And then I had a really, really close friend that I love dearly who was a big part of ordained women. And so then I was listening to her and like her questions and her struggles and kind of a lot of the struggles that a lot of women in the church were having. And I don't know, after that, it was just everything. Like I started just studying everything, but all through it, even all through that, I was feeling okay because I still felt like I had like the spirit. I still believed strongly in the spirit. And I believed that like I was being guided and I would be guided to answers. Like I went back to that, like believing that
Wow.
I would get answers eventually. And
Wow.
so,
I just
and
got
so
chills. That's amazing.
I
Wow.
well, it's what helped me got through, but then it was like it was right before I found Uplift when I had this experience with the spirit that made it felt like the spirit was testifying to me of something that I knew wasn't true. And then I was like, and I was like, I don't know. And then for the first time in my life, I questioned the spirit and I was like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the spirit is. And that's when like I feel like the dark night of the soul came, because it was like everything I felt like I knew, that hope that I held to for so long was like gone. And I just remember holding my baby in the middle of the night and just tears streaming down my face and being like, there's no God. Like all my life is based on a lie. Like this is not true. All of my life has been just, fake, a lie. And I remember feeling like I wanted to pray, but I'm like, but there's no one I could pray to. And I remember feeling like I wish I could like pray God into existence, but like it was so heartbreaking, and it was so hard because, it wasn't just like what I believed. It was like so much a part of who I was and what I loved most, like the thing I dedicated my life to. Um, and so it was that point actually that I read your article you wrote, I think for LDS Living. I can't remember what it was, but I found your article that you wrote and I was like, I'm not the only one. And like seeing that you had been through it, even down to that point of feeling like, agnostic or atheist, like that was like really comforting to me that you had been through it and had come out like okay. And so that gave me a lot of hope. And then I found Uplift, and you guys have supported me ever since. And then you've also seen me like go like this, like up and down for like years.
We all do.
so
Yeah.
so that was kind of like the crux of it all was there. And then I was able to find Uplift, where I felt like I was like, okay, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one who has these deep questions or who feels like completely lost. And so that helped me feel like there was hope. And so that kind of gave you the hope to like at least keep hanging on for a little bit to see where it took me.
Yeah. To keep wrestling, huh?
Yeah, exactly, to not just throw in the towel and say, okay, well now I'm atheist. And so it gave me the hope to be like, okay, maybe I don't have to just quit everything, and I can try to, like, after deconstructing everything, I can try to start reconstructing.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Yeah. You're just so full of wisdom from all of this, aren't you? You've been through it.
something, I don't know.
You're so you're kind of like me in that shock of plural marriage is just it's just shocking, and all the other things kind of that go along with that, character questions about Joseph and Brigham and John Taylor, and reading from women, the good and the bad. It's
Yeah,
just a very heavy topic, and so man, my heart's there with you, Michelle. That's just really hard.
yeah, it's hard, and I've seen lots of people wrestle with it too, and it's hard, heart-wrenching stuff, and it's been a long, heart-wrenching journey for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about this sometimes, but uh, there's a difference between facts, like the best facts we can find, like historical events that are described in like journals, private journals, on you know, things that we feel like maybe pretty well understand pretty well what happened, but there's difference between that and like these accusations that people like, the time of Joseph Smith and afterwards, of course, there's lots of accusers who like to paint things in a really ugly way.
Mhm.
And it's really overwhelming. Like, even if accusations don't end up being fully true, it's like it still kind of leaves you with this like a dirty taste in your mouth, like
Yeah.
I just it's hard for me. It's been hard for me over the years to be able to look at Joseph Smith, our prophet, our founder, as a good man because of the accusations that were made and that are continued to be made against him. Um, so, with that kind of as our backdrop, uh, what what have you how have you worked through like the reconstruction and be able to see these men and women, these pioneers and even people today in the church, like how are you able to see people in a more positive light? Are you able to? Are you still kind of feel that dirty taste in your mouth, or have you been able to find some peace about some of this, or how are you doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It still feels kind of roller coastery some days, but I feel like mostly I found peace because because I do tend to hyper focus. So I took another year and like studied polygamy like insanely. I don't know, just every document I could get and everything I could read. I was just going crazy trying to understand like what was going on. And I think what I came out of that was it's just hard to know. Like it's just so hard to really have a grasp of like what was actually really going on. And I have like family members who have been falsely accused of things, or like maybe things happened but then they were painted in a different light, and that's like recent, and it's been like you know, years and years and years since Joseph Smith's life. And I think I feel like I'm at a place where I can accept that like that I don't know fully, and that I can accept that there might have been problems, and there also might have been I feel like there were amazing things that he brought back to this earth, or like amazing revelations that he had that like affect my life still today, you know. And so I think I'm just at a point now where I just feel like this acceptance around Joseph and his humanness, and also that like we talk about flaws a lot and we want to focus in on flaws, but we really just don't actually know. And like what helped me was like really digging into the Joseph Smith papers and noticing that even like some things that are thrown around a lot, like I won't get super specific, but I could. But like just things that like you hear a lot and you assume like that's what that is. And then like I would read the source notes and it would say things like this is actually from a newspaper that was anti-Mormon, and it was sent in by, you know, John C. Bennett or someone who hated Joseph. And there's no actual letter in Joseph Smith's handwriting, you know, that says that we don't have any actual letter, or like this is a copy of a copy of a copy. So it just, for me, it helped loosen up the black and white thinking in my head that like either he is a prophet or he's not, and more of just like, oh, you know, I don't actually know, or that like I have to know, or I don't have, or I'm throwing it all away. And just realizing like maybe I just don't know, and it's just hard to know because it's been years and years. And maybe some of these things that sound really horrible, if you dig in, maybe they're not what we think they are. And we just don't know, because nothing's perfect, right? History isn't perfect, our own perspectives isn't perfect. So I've just kind of left it into a place of like uncertainty where like I don't know. But what I do know is that like there are truths that I feel like were brought back from Joseph Smith that do affect my life today in good and beautiful ways. And so that's what helps me hold on to that, at least. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Mm. So you've been able to embrace a certain level of uncertainty, of ambiguity, and be able to find some peace there. So people that struggle with, you know, with faith and with the church, they'll talk about mental gymnastics, right? You've heard that
Mhm.
term.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a pejorative, like, you know, I'm just basically jumping through hoops to make it all fit, and, you know, rationalizing away things, and just, you know, dealing with the you know, the cognitive dissonance, like just kind of tucking it away, and like I'm just,
Mhm.
everything's fine, you know, like, and you know, reasoning through things that are, you know, very clearly showing that the church isn't what it claims to be, you know. So this mindset of mental gymnastics, like what's your response to that? Like, are you performing mental gymnastics to be able to make all this
Mhm.
work, or what are you
Yeah,
how do
that's a
you-
great question. I think I mean, I've heard that a lot. I think I probably am. I think everyone does. I think people on the other side do as well. I think we're all just, I think maybe mental gymnastics are us just trying to make sense of our reality. And maybe it's not as bad as we say it is, you know? I do think that I am a truth lover, so I'm not trying to like create my own truth. I think I'm just at a point where I'm accepting that like maybe it's going to take more time than I thought to really know truth. And that I'm learning to really be okay with the discomfort of the dissonance instead of shoving the dissonance away or trying to solve the dissonance, or just, you know, trying to either feel like I need to make a decision one way or another to get rid of the dissonance. I'm just saying, I'm accepting you, dissonance. Welcome to my life, you know? And I think that's actually,
That's
for
awesome.
me personally, that's something that I need. I need to say, like, I'm done. Like, it goes along with my mental health journey, like pushing away emotions, trying to solve emotions actually, can make things worse. And it's actually not really considered healthy. So I'm learning to just accept these feelings and sit with them a little bit. And that doesn't mean that I don't ever start, I just never question again, or I just take things as they are. I'm still always going to question and want to learn more, but it just means that I don't have this urgency anymore to solve the problem, or to make an answer, or to perform mental gymnastics in a way that makes everything feel perfect for me. I'm okay not feeling perfect about it anymore. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. So this three-stage model from the Hafens, we'll give a plug for that, because I think it's beautiful, and true. So that, like we've talked about, this state of complexity that we still kind of find ourselves in sometimes, but there are these little moments, those little pockets of grace and of peace and of beauty that you can find ways to worship still. And I mean, is a good time to talk about kind of the temple, and we can round it out there, because I think you'd mentioned, I read your Facebook post, and it was just so touching, just beautiful. Having to take some time away,
Hmm.
being not feeling comfortable going, and then at some point finding some strength to go. When you want to talk us through and kind of maybe frame it in a way that like explains, like you had some complexity, that this dissonance, and that you were able to find a way to worship again, in the temple.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely been a journey, and you've watched me be like, I'm good, and then like, just kidding, I might be looking at other churches, and then like, I'm good again, and like, just this kind of like up and down for like years. So it has been a journey, but there's been like, to get me there, there's been a few things, and the first one I think was like learning to accept uncertainty, which I'm not, in saying that, I don't want to say that like certainty is bad in any way. Certainty is great. But like for me personally, especially with my mental health issues, I needed to learn to accept uncertainty and to be okay saying like, I hope for this and I want to believe this, but I'm not sure. And that's an okay place to be. And my bishop who interviewed me for the temple, I mean, we've been interviewing for like years, kind of just chatting with me about this journey. And he was really good about that. It's like, certainty is not a requirement to worship at the temple. And my black and white brain is like, what? And so that was like really comforting to me to know that like, it's okay if I'm not feeling like solidly certain like I used to be. And so like learning to accept that uncertainty, learning that I was okay being uncertain was really helpful too, that it didn't mean I was, less spiritual or, deceived or anything. It's just part of my personal journey, and that's okay. And what helped too was thinking of my kids, and I look at them, and if they have questions, or even if they get like doctrines, or like not doctrines, but just things in life about the world wrong, like one of my sons comes up with all sorts of theories that I'm like, okay. I'm not going to be mad about that though, right? Like I'm not going to be upset if he's confused about truth. And so like that has been another thing, just remembering that like, if there is a God, which I believe there is, and I believe they're like our heavenly parents, they're not going to be upset with me if I'm unsure, or if I'm, don't have everything perfectly figured out yet. Just like with my child, I'm going to look at him and be like, you'll get it. Like we'll get there. And I feel like our heavenly parents are the same. And so they're not freaking out. I might be freaking out because I have anxiety, but they're not worried about where I'm at, and if I'm certain or not. So that helped me feel like I could go back to being interviewed and like saying yes to testimony questions when like I didn't feel certain. It was like, if I had that hope, my bishop was like, that is awesome enough. And then also just going through and staying open to like being taught from others, but also staying open to like list like I think it's like external truth and internal truth, like trying to balance that out, and being open to hearing what like leaders and scriptures and people outside me say, and also really trying to hone into like what I'm hearing inside as well. And so in my faith journey, I've been working through trying to find that balance between my my own personal, revelation and what I'm hearing out here. I'm really trying to come to a place where I can trust that together, like listening outward and inward, is what's going to bring me to the best place. And so that's also helped me to continue like moving towards truth and towards like these things that I hope are true. And then another thing that's really helped me is remembering that like maybe the most important thing is like building a relationship with deity. And so I really tried to focus on like, even if I'm like, I don't know if there's a God, but if there is a God, this is what I imagine, and this is what I would feel, and this is how I'm trying to like connect with this deity. And then I would have these like amazing experiences where I would feel like connected with deity. And there's still like a little skeptic on my shoulder that's like, you're making that up. And I'm like, but even if I am, it feels
I
like
don't
love.
care.
Right? It feels like love. It feels like
Yeah.
goodness. It feels like everything I want for myself and for my children. So it's like,
Yeah.
and so like remembering like to focus on like the relationship has given me what I feel like are more experiences with God that have helped keep pushing me along the path. And then lastly, I think kind of related to the uncertainty is just like, I really like, despite everything, I still have this really crazy firm belief in Christ and like, and in grace. And even once again, there's always that skeptic that's like, what? Probably not. But it's like, despite that, I really love the concept of grace, and especially in contrast to like my scrupulosity, like really digging into grace and how like grace has me covered and my anxiety, right? And just realizing that like even if I go off the wrong path for a minute, or I follow the wrong truth, or I'm self-deceiving, or I'm doing mental gymnastics, like it's going to be okay. And I don't need to go into panic mode because grace has me covered. And I really do like have this, every time I think about that, I just have this sense of like, it's going to be okay. And I don't need to go into like panic mode. And then I can be safe as I go through this spiritual journey. So I feel like all of those things kind of helped push me along this journey until I was able to get to a place that like I was able to go in there with my bishop and talk to him about these things and say, right, like I'm not certain, but that's okay. I'm doing the best I can. I'm working. I want to be connected to deity. And that's why I want to go back to the temple. And yeah, so that's what helped me get there, I think.
So it was a couple of years, right? Did you say that you hadn't gone?
I think it was about 3 or 4 years. So it had been
Three
a
or four.
while.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Because for some people, like, I won't say who this is because I don't know if this person will listen to it, but I have someone close to me who we were going into a baptism together in a church building, and this person had left the church, and they turned to me and said, hey, let's look for the nearest fire extinguisher. And I was like, what are you saying? Why? And this person's like, well, I might spontaneously combust. Is a joke because like I'm a hellish person. I've disobeyed, and I've left the
Oh,
church.
no.
So we kind of laughed about it because we're close. I'm close with this person, but
Right.
like the mental and emotional anguish, the work that this person has to do and other people have to do when they go into a previous place of peace and worship.
Mhm.
It's emotional work, it's turmoil, to go into these places where you once felt safe, and now it's a place of represents abuse or
Mhm.
manipulation and all these things. And so, and we become very good gymnasts, right? To be able to go and say, you know what, I don't understand everything. I could have shared things on my mission that weren't true. Like that's a real mind trip for some people. They serve a mission and they teach all these things, like testify these things, and then learn it wasn't exactly that, that way.
Oh yeah.
It's really
I felt
difficult.
that.
So
Yeah.
my heart goes out to me, to my own heart. It's hard, and to you, Michelle, and everyone else who listens to this, it's not easy to go back and to feel peaceful about, and that's why grace, I think, is so important. Like I just love that you talked about grace. So yeah. Um, so you're now, I would say, where you would say in a place of relative peace where you can attend church and be able to feel somewhat like you belong there and able to kind of, you were able to go to the temple and enjoy some of it. And what are your next steps, I guess? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, I don't know that I have like a I don't belong complex. So like I don't know if I'm ever gonna feel like totally
Yeah.
belonging, especially with kind of like my nuanced-ish ways of thinking. Um, but I think like my next step and my next goals are just to like continue to build a relationship with deity and just focus on that and get to better know myself more and kind of move through the anxiety of like what everyone else is thinking of me and learn to belong to myself and learn to belong to like my heavenly parents and really just trust them and then I'm safe with them. And then like my hope eventually is like once I do feel in a more like stable place, I guess I still feel a little roller coastery here and there, but it's like not as like dramatic as it used to be. So it's kind of leveling out a bit. But I think my hope one day is to reach like, I don't know, like which book it is, or the stage 6 of like where you just feel like love for others and you can tolerate other spiritual journeys and you're supportive in their spiritual journeys and I'm at peace with my spiritual journey and the whole goal is to just help other people feel loved and accepted and like that it's going to be okay and that like even if life is confusing and you end up in a faith crisis and you've lost everything, all of your faith like I felt, to help those who feel that way to know that it's okay that they feel that way, but it's part of being human, it's part of growth, it's part of life, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with them and that they're lovable no matter what they believe. Even people who left the church, I I have a deep love for them and I hope that even if I end up staying, I hope I can be um, someone who consistently shows love and support in their spiritual journeys wherever they are, just like I think that our heavenly parents are doing. Like I think they are really supportive even if their children don't believe in them. I think they're just really supportive and always have those arms of love extended. So I think like that's the long-term goal for me once I get in a better place myself. It's just hopefully I can be more supportive to others.
Well, this is a good step towards that, even further than what you're probably already doing, is to put yourself out there on a video and share your struggles and your love for people. It's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful, Michelle. Um, so anything else you'd like to share? I mean, this is we're not going to do like a 3-hour deep dive onto every little thing, but maybe wrap us up with any other final thoughts. And then if people, I'm sure if they have questions or want to reach out to you, is there a way that people can do that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm available on Facebook Messenger or really anywhere, email, whatever.
Okay.
Um, as for wrapping up, I feel like I've said all the things that were like on my heart, mostly that I just like I hope that I hope that people can feel like that, I don't know, even if they don't even believe in grace, but that like grace is there, that like it's going to be okay, that even if in the moment you're like falling apart, that you're it's not the end, and there's still hope and happiness ahead and there's good things that can come, like that talk says. And yeah, and that really, I think my biggest thing that I've learned is, or that I've learned and that I would want other people to know is just that like there's nothing that changes your worth. Like leaving the church, being semi-active, or having different beliefs, being I don't know, nothing, I think not, I would want people to know that nothing changes your worth and nothing changes how lovable you are. And because that's something like I really struggle with personally. And I think that's related to my own anxiety and depression issues. But like, I just feel like when that big part of your identity crumbles, it does start to feel a little scary. Like, am I still going to be worthy and lovable? But I feel like that's the most important thing that we can do is just help everyone know that they are lovable and worthy of love, no matter where you are in your faith journey.
That's beautiful.
So that's
Yeah.
it.
Very good. Well, you've got a balanced approach, I think, to all of this. I can tell that you've kind of landed in a good middle ground and your direction is good. And so that's wonderful. It sounds like you're, like we joke, I think I joked with you in a text like before, like that you've completed your journey. And like, it's funny because it's like, we still have so many years ahead of us, like,
Yeah.
and there's just still so much to learn and it's exciting, but it's heavy and it's difficult and we still have, more ups and downs, but we're fighters, like for those
Mhm.
who listen to this and aren't sure if they can continue, like it's just a good message. Like we've been fighting, I've been fighting this, I've been fighting doubt and learning how to even embrace in a lot of ways doubt and like it's natural and like hunger, like
Mhm.
it's a sign that I need something. And so just, words of encouragement from me and from both of us is that peace and revelation can come as you wrestle with things and to be patient and to seek those, personal revelation is really important. I wouldn't be, I think, in the church today if it wasn't for the personal revelation that I've received because I've read a bunch of stuff. I've good and bad and everything in between and that's like kind of leaves you like kind of shaken. And so the personal revelation is really really important too. But so yeah, I know I asked you for final words, but anything final else you want to say, and then we'll end the video. Just say goodbye or say take care with everybody.
Nope. Yeah. Take care and best of luck. And I know it's hard, but there are people here that want to support you. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Stop the recording.